Thank you so much. Thanks to everybody for joining this call. It's my great pleasure to have a chance to update you all on what we're doing in Washington in these closing days of the year, closing days and hours of this Congress. And I'm going to focus in particular on the situation we're all facing with the coronavirus and our work to try to get some more relief before the end of the year. We're obviously going through a very, very dark period in this crisis that has been going on for too long. We are above 300,000 deaths right now in this country. We have allowed ourselves, in my view, to be hit harder than just about any advanced country in the world. And while New Jersey is doing better than a lot of other states that have not taken seriously the need to confront the pandemic, we have not been spared in New Jersey, as we all know, either. And it is a terrible, terrible lesson to have learned, in my view, about the importance of having a national government that takes public health emergencies seriously, that follows science, that gives the American people good, solid advice based on that science. Now, the good news is that there is now light at the end of the tunnel. We have vaccines that are extremely effective, that are being deployed as we speak to those who need them most first. I'm optimistic that by the middle part of next year, we'll be at a point where everybody who needs the vaccine in the general population will have been able to take it. So that gives us a rough endpoint to the public health crisis. We need to make sure that the economy of our country is sustained until that point, and that's where Congress needs to meet its responsibility. We have passed bill after bill in the House of Representatives to provide additional relief. Those bills have been blocked in the United States Senate until very recently. We now have a bipartisan agreement that started with the work of rank and file members, Republicans and Democrats in the House and Senate, to put together a modest compromise that will not do everything that I think is necessary, but that I think will get us through the winter. And we're basically on the 1 yard line right now. In the next couple of days, by this weekend, I would expect us to have passed that legislation. So let me tell you guys basically what I expect it to include. I expect it will include direct payments to individuals. The compromise that we presented to our leadership would provide $600 direct payments. It will extend the pandemic unemployment insurance program by 16 weeks. That program is going to expire in December. We're going to extend it by 16 weeks, supplementing the unemployment from federal funds by $300 a week for those 16 weeks. It will extend the small business loan program, the PPP program that helps so many of our Main Street businesses stay alive this year. So if you own a small business that sustained significant revenue loss in any quarter of 2020, you will be able to receive a second fully forgivable Paycheck Protection Program loan. And we're simplifying the process, making it easier to get loan forgiveness for our small businesses. That's something that's really, really important. We will have funding for our transportation system. So in New Jersey, it's really, really important. New Jersey Transit, Amtrak, our bus lines have been devastated by the loss of ridership during COVID. We are going to provide the funding they need to get through at least the next couple of months. There will be funding for vaccine development and, very importantly, for distribution. It's great that we have a vaccine. The massive challenge right now is making sure that every single American can get one as quickly as possible and at no cost. And so we will be providing the funding that the new administration will need to make the distribution at warp speed in addition to the development. There'll be funding for more testing and contact tracing. We will provide a significant amount of funding for our schools through our state government so that our public and private schools will have the resources they need for whatever measures we decide locally are needed to protect our teachers and our students and to continue to provide the best education we can to our kids. If you have a student loan, the student loan forbearance provisions that we created earlier this year will be extended by this bill, likely through the end of April 2021. If you are a renter, we extend the moratorium on evictions until the end of January of 2021 with additional funding to help people who need it pay their rent. There'll be nutrition assistance, funding for the post office to make sure that the post office can survive its financial crisis and continue to help us in this period when we've depended on it even more. And also really important funding to expand broadband access, which has become something all of us have depended on even more, especially for rural areas. And we have in our district, out in Hunterdon and Warren counties, we have areas that really need this help. So those are some of the highlights. And once again, my expectation is that we will have a bill that we can vote on in the House of Representatives by this weekend. I'm confident that if we pass it, the Senate will pass it as well, and President Trump will sign it. So we will have met our promise to have delivered before the holidays. So that's the main thing that I've been focused on. We're also going to pass our appropriations bills to fund the government for the next year. As part of that agreement, we have a deal that's going to be really, really important for anyone concerned with how our healthcare system functions in this country. We have an agreement to end the practice of surprise medical billing. If you have health insurance and you've ever been to the hospital or an emergency room and you thought that everything was covered in network, and then you get your bill and there's a big surprise, sometimes a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 surprise, that is not going to happen anymore, because we will take through this legislation patients completely out of the equation. Patients will not be billed. Doctors and insurance companies and hospitals will have to figure out a way to make sure that the patient is not held liable because of a surprise out-of-network bill. That's a bipartisan agreement that I'm very glad that we have been able to reach. Next year, big priority for me is going to be getting investment in our transportation infrastructure. We desperately need it in New Jersey. We desperately need it around the country. We've got to fix our highways, our railways, our ports, our airports. It's a great way to put people back to work as we recover from COVID, and also we can do it in a way that helps our country transition to cleaner forms of energy so that we can beat climate change and be the country that leads the world to a clean energy future. That's something that I'm going to be working hard on. It will include, with the Biden administration, support for our all-important Gateway Tunnel project here in New Jersey. I've been working for that for 2 years, and we are now in a place where I can say I'm confident that we are going to get the funding and support that we need. So those are some of the highlights of what we're doing and what I'm looking forward to in the near term. I would love to now turn the floor over to all of you, hear any thoughts that you have, any questions on those issues or any other issue that is on your mind. Thanks again.
Great. Thank you so much, Congressman. And another reminder, if you do have any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and press 0 on your phone keypad to submit those. You can also press 7 to get on our email list here. So with that, Congressman, we have Scott in Stonebridge live on the line. Scott, welcome to the call. Please go ahead with your question.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Congressman. We have been really impressed by the statesmanship you've shown the last 2 years. We backed you 2 years ago, and we've been so proud that you found the words and you found the persuasive capacity to really move these things along. And I guess with your focus on transportation and the gateway and so on, you're very happy about Pete Buttigieg, his appointment. He's coming in full steam, a fellow Rhodes Scholar.
I am really happy to see a lot of the appointments that President-elect Biden is making. First of all, I'm just happy we're going to have an administration that's led by people who are decent and who are truth tellers and who have a sense of responsibility about them. I want to see less drama. I want to see less name calling. I want to see more hard work on behalf of helping Americans and protecting our country. And the team that President-elect Biden has appointed, I think, includes just a lot of people in that category. Pete Buttigieg, if he's confirmed by the Senate, will be the Secretary of Transportation. I think that's good news for us in New Jersey and for the country. That's been kind of a backwater department. No one pays much attention to the Department of Transportation, but I think it needs to be a center of action for the next couple of years because, as I mentioned, America desperately needs this investment in fixing our broken infrastructure. If you've ever taken the train or been to an airport in Europe or in most Asian countries, you'll see just how far we have fallen in that category. And in New Jersey, we've got the Gateway project as sort of the big example of what we need most, the Hudson River Tunnel and all the other infrastructure we need to replace these railway bridges and tunnels that were built well over 100 years ago. And I think, as I also mentioned, as we do this, as we fix these things, we also need to bring them into the 21st century. We need to be relying more on clean energy. We need more electric cars and buses and trucks on the highways. And if we do that, we're going to need to upgrade our national electrical grid. That's going to take a lot of investment. All of that investment will create jobs, no matter what we're building and fixing. But it will also, if we do it in the right way, in a smart way, it'll help to make sure that America, not China, not any other country, leads the world to the clean energy future that the world is heading towards. I want American companies, American workers to build and develop the technology that the world uses to make that transition. I think Pete Buttigieg is a great guy to explain that to the American people and to bring us together in Congress to make it happen. Thanks again.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, Scott, so much for joining our call tonight. Next up, we have a question coming in from Joan here in Baskin Ridge. Joan, welcome to the call. Please go ahead with your question.
Hi, Congressman Malinowski. So glad that you're staying put. Congratulations on your win.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to hear all that you said about the coronavirus, but I'm now worried about another issue, and that's the hack that has been reported. Can you give us some update on what we know and what we can do to fix this?
The hack, right? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is. I can't say more than what's in the public record. But it is a very serious attack on our country, and we need to treat it that way. It's pretty clear that it came from Russia, and that they have penetrated networks and computer systems at many of our federal government agencies. It's not the first time that they've been in email systems. I used to work at the State Department, as many of you know, and I assumed that all of my unclassified email messages were being read by Putin or somebody working for Putin, and we just behaved accordingly. But this seems to be a much deeper penetration, and we're going to have to figure out what capabilities it gives them. And it could well be more than just being able to read the communications of our government officials. They could very well have achieved the kind of persistent access to our government networks that allows them to manipulate data, to impersonate American citizens, and to do a lot of mischief that creates harm to Americans in the future. So we're going to have to figure out the extent of the damage, and it's probably going to take a lot of effort to reconstitute these networks so that we can be certain that we are secure. On top of that, that's playing defense. That's healing a wound that has been inflicted on us. But we also need to make sure that a price is paid for these kinds of attacks. I've heard absolutely nothing from President Trump or the Trump administration about the fact that Russia did this or what consequences will be imposed. Of course, in a very short period of time, we're going to have a new president who even today has committed that we will take action against Russia or any country that attacks the United States in this way. And ideally, we will take that action not alone, but with our allies. This is why alliances like NATO are so important. The basic principle behind NATO is an attack against one country is an attack on all the countries in the alliance, and that we react together. That's the best way to deter the Russians or the Chinese or the North Koreans or anyone else from attempting to do this. And so it will be very important to have a president starting in January 21st who actually believes that America needs allies, who doesn't spend his time insulting them, but instead spends his time strengthening those alliances. This is when we need them. Thanks again for that question.
Thank you, Congressman, and thank you, Joan, for that question. And I do just want to remind everyone on the line that you can go ahead and press 0 on your phone keypad, get in line with your question, comment, or concern for the Congressman here, and then you can also press 7 to receive email updates from the Congressman's office. So with that, we do have Joshua on the line right now. Joshua in Westfield, welcome to our call. Please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, hi. So my question is quite simple. So I'm a healthcare provider, and I actually received my first coronavirus vaccination yesterday. But my family is asking me, they don't have any special issue and they're not in healthcare. When will they know, and where ultimately will they go to know that they're ready to get a coronavirus vaccine? How are the vaccines going to be distributed to, the people who aren't on the special list, like healthcare workers or people in nursing homes and stuff?
Right. Well, first of all, congratulations. It's good to hear that the process has started, and I think you would agree that it makes sense to start with healthcare workers, other essential workers who cannot Zoom in to work, folks in nursing homes who are particularly vulnerable, then moving on to other people over age 65, folks who are immunocompromised. The first goal here has to be to stop the bleeding, to stop the dying from coronavirus by vaccinating those who are most vulnerable. My understanding, of course, the distribution is being run by the state government. My understanding from Governor Murphy and our state officials is that we will be receiving about 1 million doses of the Pfizer vaccine a month starting in January. And of course, there are other vaccines that are coming online. Moderna, I think, is about to be approved, and I would expect other vaccines to be approved in the coming weeks. And so I think that that monthly number will grow hopefully exponentially. We heard today that we may be able to get more doses out of every vial of the Pfizer vaccine, which was really, really good news as well. So, I can't tell anybody, I can't tell you when a particular person might be ready, when we might be ready to give them that shot in the arm. But I'm optimistic that it will be relatively soon, that, even potentially by April, we will be getting through a large part of the general population in the state of New Jersey. The state, of course, is going to communicate all of that to us through our healthcare providers and all kinds of other ways. And when we do get to vaccination of the general population, you'll be able to do it at mass testing facilities at some of our larger hospitals in the state, but also at local pharmacies, at CVS and Rite Aid pharmacies that will be set up to help people get the vaccine. So that's, I think, the most I can say right now. But I have to say I'm fairly satisfied with the system that we have set up in New Jersey and focused mostly on my responsibility, which is to make sure that we get resources to our public health system and to our state government to manage this in the most efficient possible way without costing those of us getting the vaccine a penny.
Thank you, Congressman. And Joshua, thank you so much. And Congressman, I just want to remind everyone on the line that if you need assistance with a federal agency, including issues related to Social Security, Medicare, and veterans benefits, IRS, travel and immigration paperwork, or if you are seeking assistance securing your unemployment benefits, our office may be able to help. So please email nj07.casework@mail.house.gov with the details of your situation, and a member of the Congressman's staff here will reach out to you. While we cannot guarantee a favorable outcome, we will do our absolute best to help you receive a fair and timely response to your problem. And I'll remind everyone on the line again towards the end of our call here. So I want to get right back to our live questions, Congressman. So with that, we have Betty in Clark here live on the line. Well, not live. She actually would rather me have her question read. So, Congressman, why is it so hard to get a COVID test? It's been 9 months. It should be easier to get one without waiting in a long line. What can we say to Betty?
I think it has gotten easier in the last 2 or 3 weeks in general, and of course your experience may be different, but it has gotten a little bit easier in the state of New Jersey and in many parts of the country to get a COVID test and to get, this is so important, to get the results more quickly, because we had a situation a few weeks and months ago where you could get a test, but you're waiting 7 to 10 days, and that made the test virtually useless. A number of our counties have now made it possible to get in-home testing, where the test is mailed to your home, and you can take it at home and send it back in and get a relatively quick result. And we're happy to take this. I'd be happy to take this as a casework request. So if you're willing to leave your information, a member of our staff can reach out to you and help you figure out the easiest and fastest way to get a test if you need one before the holidays or for whatever reason, whether it's the in-home test or going to a local pharmacy or clinic. There should be many options for you at this point.
Thank you so much. And Betty, yes, you're back into that listening audience. And this goes for everyone on the call. Just stay on to the very end. You will be able to leave us that voicemail, and a member of our staff will be able to reach back out to you. So with that, we have Susan here in Baskin Ridge. Susan, you're live on the line. Please go ahead with your question for the Congressman.
Hi, Congressman. It has been my pleasure to meet with you a couple of times when we were down lobbying, and I just want to congratulate you on your reelection. I am so pleased.
Thank you so much.
And it meant a lot. Every time I saw a Malinowski sign, I smiled. Do you think
Me too.
that even yes, your mother too, I know. Do you think that even with the loss of many Democratic congressional seats in the House, that there will be more opportunities for bipartisanship in the new Congress? I know much depends on the Senate outcome in Georgia, but that notwithstanding, how will we fare in this new Congress with this new administration?
So there will be a necessity for bipartisan cooperation. And that's true no matter what happens in the Senate races in Georgia. If the Democratic candidates win both of those seats, the Democrats will have 50 seats and Republicans will have 50 seats, and Vice President Harris will have a tie-breaking vote, and it will still be impossible to get anything through the Senate to the White House for President Biden to sign if we do not have bipartisan support for legislation. The way we were able to get this COVID relief bill this week was Republicans and Democrats working together, rank and file members, to negotiate a middle-of-the-road compromise. Nobody is fully happy with it, but at least it's something that we can actually get done. I think that will be easier when President Biden is in the White House. He has a lot of experience in the Senate. He knows the Republicans. He knows the Democrats. That's going to be very valuable to us. And I think, I can speak for myself and certainly for many of my Democratic colleagues in the House in saying we understand that we are now the governing party. We're not the messaging party. We're the governing party. We will be judged based on what we can deliver. And for practical reasons, we know we cannot get legislation to President Biden without getting at least some support from moderate members on the other side. So that's going to be my model. It's the only model that works. And one of the first tests, I think, will be whether we can get that big infrastructure bill that I was discussing earlier on this call. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Susan. Next up, we have a question here from Mary Lou in Warren. Mary Lou, you're live on the line. Please go ahead with your question.
Hello. Thank you very much for having these town halls, and congratulations on your reelection.
Thank you.
My question is relative to PPP. I'm a very small business owner, and to get the original PPP, which I am extremely grateful for, was an extremely difficult process. Now I'm in the process of applying for forgiveness. Once again, it seems pretty convoluted, and the bank alluded to me that there was some talk that PPP loans under a certain amount wouldn't have to jump through hoops to get it forgiven, but would automatically be forgiven. And I think those were loans under, the bank thought, under $50,000. And I was curious if there is any thought to that. And then with the upcoming PPP, is it possible that this process will be very streamlined? Tiny businesses, we don't have the hordes of accountants and other kind of advisors, and we're scrambling to do business and come up with creative ways, and then we get sidetracked to try and garner the funds that the government is offering. It makes it makes a difficult situation even more difficult.
Yep, totally agree. The answer is yes. We are trying in this package that we hope to pass in the next couple of days to greatly simplify the loan forgiveness process for businesses with loans. What we proposed actually was for loans of $150,000 or less. These numbers may shift a little bit in the kind of final stage of negotiations, but that principle will be there. We absolutely want this to be as simple as possible for truly small businesses. Frankly, I'd be happy to make it automatically forgivable for really small businesses. So we're going to come as close as we can to that. And there's also going to be, at least what we've negotiated so far, includes setting aside funding in the PPP program for very small businesses, for example, with less than 10 employees, which is true of a lot of our small town mom and pop shops. Probably a significant share of the small businesses in our district that got these loans are within that category. And banks, one of the problems was banks preferred to deal with the big guys because those are their steady and most lucrative customers, their existing customers with which they already had a relationship. And then these really small businesses came in and they got sent to the back of the line. We've already fixed a lot of those problems, but we're going to try to make it better in this next round of funding. And if you find yourself in any difficulty, please let my office know because we were able back in the spring to help a lot of small business owners navigate this process more easily, and we will go to bat for you again if you need it.
Thank you, Congressman. And Mary Lou, so glad to have you on the line with us. Next up, we have a question coming here from Greg in Flemington. Greg, you're live on the line with the Congressman. Please go ahead with your question.
Thank you very much. Congressman, first of all, congratulations, as someone said, on your win. We're so glad that you're back again.
Thank you.
So my question, you talked earlier about the attack, the hacker from Russia or wherever. And I know we're supposed to defend our country against enemies, both foreign and domestic. And what's happening in Congress right now with these Republicans undermining the faith and confidence in our elections, I think is an attack. And my question to you is, what are we going to do to protect our country from domestic enemies and hold people accountable to rhetoric that may get people killed?
Well, thanks for that question. And you know what? I don't think you're exaggerating. Members of Congress, on one level, we all have a right to say whatever stupid things we want, right? It's free speech. And usually the price you're supposed to pay for stupid speech if you're a politician is you don't get reelected. But what we're seeing right now is not just the normal stupidity. What we're seeing is responsible leaders in this country, at least they're supposed to be responsible, spreading myths and lies about our democratic system of government designed to undermine public confidence in our elections and undermine public confidence in the leaders who are elected by the American people. Everybody's got a right to complain about elections and to go to court. The Trump campaign has gone to court now dozens of times, and they've lost in every case because they've admitted in these cases they have no real evidence. And yet we still have members of Congress trying to perpetuate this myth, keeping people angry in ways that I do fear can lead to violence. In fact, there have already been acts of violence by people inspired by this rhetoric. So what can we do about it? Well, I wish the voters would hold these guys accountable. But in the meantime, one thing I've suggested is that we focus in particular on members of Congress who went to the Supreme Court claiming massive fraud in elections in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Georgia, where the members of Congress themselves are from one of those 4 states. Because what they're basically doing is trying to have it both ways. They're trying to say it was massive fraud with no evidence, but massive fraud that should call into question Joe Biden's win of those states. But at the same time, they don't want anyone to call into question their own victories in those same states using the same mail-in ballots on the same pieces of paper that they want us to question. So personally, my personal view is that those members from those 4 states, if they're making that kind of challenge, well, they shouldn't be seated themselves unless they acknowledge that they don't actually have evidence of fraud in their own elections. Or if they do have that evidence, then they need to present it to the House of Representatives so that we can actually properly evaluate it. But they can't have it both ways anymore. That's my view. Thanks for raising that.
Yes, thank you, Greg, for that question, and thank you, Congressman. Next up, we have a question coming here from Pauline and Clark. Pauline, you are live on the line. Welcome to our call. Please go ahead with your question.
Hello, Congressman, and congratulations on your reelection. I'm very happy about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My question is about the burden of loan debt. So I understand that there are proposals in the current stimulus package to extend the forbearance through April, but I'm concerned about what the long-term goals or ideas are with regard to student debt relief, because speaking from the perspective of African American and Latino communities, that is a significant barrier to future growth and prosperity, having those, huge burdens of student debt. So I'd like to know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, thanks for the question. You're totally right. It is a huge burden. And a lot of people have argued, I think very reasonably, that giving folks some relief from that student loan debt would be good for the economy because, you're talking about folks in their 20s mostly who are right at that age where you want them to buy that first car, buy that first house, spend money in the economy, but they're making huge student loan payments instead. On the other hand, there are people who argued, well, I paid off my loans, and so I don't think it's fair for somebody who hasn't to get all of them forgiven regardless of their need. So we're going to look at a whole bunch of different ideas. I know that the Biden administration is going to look at this as a priority. I think the best solution would be something balanced that does provide some relief, particularly to those people who need it the most based on their income. And in the meantime, there are other even simpler things we can do because Congress has a lot to say about interest rates for student loans. It's ridiculous that you've got interest rates for student loans that are so much higher than interest rates for mortgages and interest rates for small business loans. It makes no sense. So I want to make it easier for student loan bearers to refinance their loans at much lower rates and to make sure the banks can't charge the kinds of rates that really are gouging people unnecessarily. So those are some of the items on my list, and I'm looking forward to see what the new administration proposes too. Thanks so much for raising that.
Yes, thank you so much, Pauline. So glad to have you on the line with us. Next up, we have a question here, Congressman, coming from Diana in New Providence. Diana, you're live on the line. Please go ahead with your question.
Hi.
Diana, are you still there? We lost you.
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you
Hello?
now, Diana, yes.
Oh, okay. First of all, thanks for everything you're working on. It sounds like you have great balanced ideas. But I had two questions. Is the stimulus check that's coming out going to also go to seniors?
Yes, it goes to everyone. And again, some of these numbers may change in the last couple of days, but it is income-based, so folks making less than $100,000 a year, basically. But yes, seniors, basically everybody.
So if you're
adults.
on Social Security, then you'll get one.
Yes. Yes. Again, it depends on if your income is above. If for whatever reason your total income is above a certain threshold, then you may not. But it doesn't matter if you're receiving Social Security or how you're getting that income. That's not going to be the issue.
Great. Thank you so much, Congressman. Diane, I'm so glad to have you also on the line with us. Next up, we have a question coming in from Dave here in Short Hills. Dave, you're live on the line. Please go ahead with your question for the Congressman.
Hi, and thanks for doing this, Congressman, and like the rest of the callers, so glad to see that we were able to send you back to Washington to keep a sane head representing us in Congress. I don't want to belabor the point, but just to return to your earlier comments on the Gateway Project and the infrastructure bill, while I'm not worried about the House passing one, have you gotten any feel for how the Senate is going to be disposed toward agreeing to some sort of infrastructure legislation this coming year?
Sure. And first of all, you can never belabor infrastructure with me. We will belabor it until we get it done. And on Gateway, the Hudson River Tunnel, and by the way, the first stage of the Gateway project is the Portal Bridge, and one of my big priorities in my first term was getting that approved and the funding for it, and we were successful. That is a done deal, even despite President Trump's early opposition to it. So that's going to go forward. Next big step is the Hudson River Tunnel, and there's a lot that Joe Biden can do to get that moving, even without Congress passing any more legislation or providing any more money. There is already some money allocated for projects like this. The first thing that needs to happen is President Biden getting rid of some of the bureaucratic roadblocks that the Trump administration put in its place. For example, things like releasing an environmental impact statement, which has been buried by the current administration. Joe Biden could do that by snapping his fingers on his first day in office. And I am in touch with the transition team, talking to them about some of those bureaucratic steps, administrative steps that Biden could take to get it going. Now, to your question, there is bipartisan support for the idea that we need infrastructure investment in this country, and that major infrastructure investment is the best way to recover the economy from the COVID crisis. So that's the good news. That's bipartisan. That's House as well as Senate. Now, we will have different ideas about how to make those investments. I think Democrats are going to be more focused on mass transit, for example. We're going to be more focused on investments, as I mentioned, that help us transition to cleaner energy in the future, electrification, and so forth. And so we're going to have to debate that, and there will be compromises. I'm guessing I'm not going to get everything I want. I'm hoping that my Republican colleagues acknowledge that they can't get everything they want either. And if we go into it with that in mind, on a foundation of agreement that some kind of infrastructure bill is absolutely necessary, then I think it's a job that we can get done. So please keep belaboring the point. Please keep contacting us and your other representatives about it, because we need to have that pressure from our constituents. And all I can do is tell you I will work my heart out until we deliver something. Thanks so much.
Thank Thank you so much, Congressman. Dave, thank you so much as well. And I do just want to remind everyone on the line, if you haven't done so already, you can press 7 to receive email updates from the Congressman's office. So again, that's pressing 7 will add you to our email list. Just go ahead and press 7 on your phone keypad. And with that, Congressman, we do have, I believe it's Katie Ann. So sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Katie Ann in Greenbrook. So you are live on the line. Please go ahead with your question.
Hi, Congressman. Congratulations. I am
Thank you so much.
excited that you got reelected. I appreciate the fact that you always make yourself accessible to the community. And one of my biggest struggles is that I spoke to you in the past about having a son with special needs. And I think the community, those that are most vulnerable, are more difficult to make means in this pandemic. For example, I'm a teacher, so students still do not have access to school because they do not have internet or do they not have a device. For example, I cannot teach if my son with special needs is not going to school. So how do we solve the problem of getting kids to school and parents to work if schools are not open, if those that are most vulnerable still do not have the access and the ability to have an opportunity and the equity to be able to access school because parents are working and they cannot put the kids in front of the screen. So how do we move forward from this?
Well, I understand the impulse for closing schools or going virtual and hybrid earlier this fall. The deeper we get into this crisis, the more I'm convinced that we have to place more of an emphasis on reopening schools. I would, I think it's crazy that we have done more to close schools than to close restaurants and bars, from just a public health, controlling the spread of COVID point of view. I would rather have a more draconian shutdown of bars and restaurants with full compensation for the losses that the owners of those establishments necessarily experience, while trying to keep our schools as open as possible. And that's been the advice that I have given to our state leadership in recent weeks. I've also urged them, as they put this vaccination plan into place, I have urged them to prioritize vaccination of teachers and school employees, not because teachers are necessarily more vulnerable as a population than others, but because of the really high value to the whole society, for all the reasons you mentioned, of reopening our schools so that our kids can go back to in-person education. So the more quickly we vaccinate our teachers and school personnel, the more confident I think our parents and school boards and teachers will be in getting those schools reopened. From the congressional perspective, we can't make it happen because Congress doesn't decide public school policy for our local community. That's a local decision. But what we can do is provide money. We can provide resources. And so in this bill that we are hopefully doing this weekend, there will be around, I believe, about $80 billion to help our schools, hopefully using that money to reopen as safely as possible. Thanks so much for raising the question and for staying in touch with us and really educating me based on your own experience about how important this is.
Yes, thank you so much, Katie Ann, for joining us. And again, I do just want to remind everyone on the line once more here that if you do need assistance with a federal agency, including issues related to the Social Security, Medicare, and Veterans benefits, IRS, travel, and immigration paperwork, or if you are seeking assistance securing your unemployment benefits, our office may be able to help. Again, just go ahead and please email nj07.casework@mail.house.gov. So just email that email again. It's nj07.casework@mail.house.gov with the details of your situation, and a member of the Congressman's staff will reach out to you. And with that, we have Alvin next up here with his question in Hillsborough. Alvin, you're live on the line. Please go ahead with your question for the Congressman.
Good evening, Congressman. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, Alvin. Thanks for joining.
Good. Yes, I had the pleasure of meeting you a couple of years ago at Somerville train station. I know you meet several people and you're a rock star, but I really enjoyed your conversation with you. I am a veteran in Hillsborough, New Jersey. I recently contacted your office about the challenges that I'm having getting compensation from the military. I am a proud veteran of 2 wars, Desert Storm back in '91 and Iraqi Freedom back up until 2008 to 2010. I am speaking on behalf of the population of veterans that you have in Somerset County, not only myself. It's unfortunate that we have many challenges and red tape that we have to go through to get compensated. We're not asking for handouts. We're asking for the commitment of our country to assist us in the way that we represented them in our homeland and abroad. Again, I served in 2 separate wars, and I have to go through red tape. I've had to hire a lawyer, Bender and Bender, and I reached out to your office, and your office was very helpful and courteous to me. And my question to you is, what can you do to assist the veterans in Somerset County? And again, we're not asking for a handout. We represented this country. We don't regret representing our country, but unfortunately, we come back to our country and we treat it, we're put to the side. And again, we're not asking for favors. We're not asking for a handout. We're asking to be acknowledged.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. And you don't even need the disclaimer. Like we are all. I speak for everybody on this call in saying we're grateful for your service to our country, and we know that service often comes with sacrifice. While you're deployed, it should not come with frustration when you come home. And the benefits that we're talking about here, these are benefits that you earned. So yeah, they're not handouts. These are things that you earned through service to others. So there are 2 ways we can help depending on the situation. One, you've already reached out to the office. I'm glad that we're working. I gather from what you said that we're working on your situation, and we've often been able to help veterans basically just one-on-one, one person at a time, cut through whatever red tape is getting in the way of your earned benefits. And number 2, sometimes, we learn something by working with an individual veteran like yourself about problems in the system that require legislation to fix the problem. So I'll ask my team after this call to brief me a little bit on your situation, and we'll see if it's that kind of case where we may need to make some changes to the system. But in either case, we'll do our best to help you individually. And If anyone on this call knows any veterans in Somerset County or anywhere in the district I represent who are having those kinds of difficulties, please encourage them to reach out to my office, and we will do our best to go to bat for them.
Great. Thank you so much, Congressman. Alvin, thank you so much. And Congressman, it does look like we have time for one more question here, but before we get to Bob's question, I just want to remind everyone on the line right now that you can stay on until the very end of this call to leave us a voicemail message. Just go ahead and follow the prompts there. Leave us your name, your best contact, and then your question, comment, or concern, and then a member of our staff will reach back out to you. So with that, our last question for you, Congressman, is coming from Bob in Clinton. Bob, you're live on the line. Please go ahead with your question.
All right, thanks so much, Congressman Malinowski, and congratulations on your reelection. I wanted to ask more about the work you're doing with Congresswoman Ashu on the Section 230 reform bill. I like that there's effort there. I just want to say I'm kind of sick and tired of feeling like half of my neighbors and friends and family, or most of my family, are in a cult, and the algorithms that are being used here are clearly dividing us. I was wondering, how are you going to get bipartisan support, being that the other party on this bill is a fellow Democrat, if we don't have a Democratic-controlled Senate? How do we get any sort of bipartisan support to make sure this doesn't fall flat on its face once it leaves the House?
Yeah, thanks so much for raising that. Let me back up and give some background for other folks on the call. So, look, we all get our news now, or most of us get our news filtered through the internet, through social media platforms like Facebook and Google and Twitter, even if the original source is a newspaper or news agency. It's getting filtered through these big online platforms. And who decides what you and I see when we log on to, say, Facebook or Instagram or Google? It's not a person, it's not a journalist, it's not an editor. It's a software program, an algorithm. And what that algorithm does is it tracks all of our behavior on the internet. It figures out who we are and what we think and what we like, and it gives us more of what we already think and already like. So if you're a little bit anti-Semitic, Facebook will figure that out, and it's going to give you more stuff that feeds and encourages and makes more extreme your anti-Semitism. If you're a little bit racist, it'll give you more stuff that's racist. If you hate the Democrats, it'll give you more stuff that hates the Democrats. If you hate the Republicans, it'll give you more stuff that hates on the Republicans. And in so doing, it just pushes us further and further apart, further and further to the extremes. And of course, the reason they do that is they figured out that if they give us more and more and more of what we're afraid of what we hate, of what we like, of what we love, then we'll spend more time glued to our screens, and we'll see more ads, and we'll buy more stuff, and they'll make more money. So this, I think, is one of the big problems we got to tackle if we want fewer divisions in our country, and if we want to be able to talk to each other across these partisan divides. So the bill that you mentioned, what it basically does is it says these big online companies may be held liable if they promote content using these algorithms that leads to really significant harm in the real world, acts of violence, acts of terrorism, hate crimes, and so forth. Because right now, under a law called Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, Facebook, Twitter, etc., cannot be held accountable for anything that users post on their sites. And I'm saying if a user posts it and you write an algorithm that makes it go viral, then based on what makes you the most money, then actually you ought to be held responsible for that. And if we do hold them responsible, I hope that they will change these software programs, these algorithms, so that this effect of pushing us all into these bubbles is diminished. And we know they can do that. So you asked about how we're going to promote it. Look, I just introduced this bill a couple of months ago. The idea was to start a conversation, to start a debate. We're beginning to do that. I've reached out to some of President-elect Biden's senior people who are very interested in this approach, and I've also begun talking to some of my Republican friends in the Congress who are also concerned about this polarization. And there are plenty of Republicans who see what's happening. They're just as concerned as I am. So I'm going to work really hard to reach across the aisle, get some bipartisan support for this, get some more public attention for it, and make it part of the conversation in Washington next year. I'm glad you've noticed, glad you asked. Please stay in touch with us on this.